I'm Eunice LaFate. I've lived in the city of Wilmington for the last 31 years, and truly, I believe Wilmington is a place to be somebody. I created this documentary based on my passion for the arts, and more so, my experience of the transforming power of the arts as used with my son growing up on the east side of Wilmington and his friends back in the 90s. I'm hoping that you can gain inspiration from this documentary, and I hope that you will see fit to ensure young kids are involved in the arts.
Well, I think as an artist, she is top-notch in almost anything she undertakes.
Always a story behind that art, and that's what has made her last for 20 years.
Eunice is a very powerful woman, and I say powerful because her artwork brings healing to the community where she is.
With the problems that we have in our city with dropout rates and some of the crime we have, I would have loved to have 100 Eunices, the kids that she did save and put on the right track.
She was blessed to have a career in industry, and she left that to go and serve her community.
I was born and raised in St. Anne, Jamaica, a wonderful family of 10 children, 8 girls and 2 boys. And my parents were wonderful. My father was a preacher, my mom a homemaker. They shaped us in great values, ancestral values. And one of the things I remember is the fact that we had to learn those little memory gems. Labor for learning before you grow old, for learning is better than silver and gold will vanish away, but a good education will never decay. And that was important because my parents were poor, relatively poor. But they insisted that if we did get a good education, we could make all the money we wanted to, and I've proven that right. I grew up and became a teacher and went to Teachers College, and while I was in Teachers College, it was required that for every lesson you must have a visual aid. And that is where my creative talent came to being, because I made beautiful charts, and instead of cutting and pasting pictures, I drew my own pictures. I was determined that I was going to advance my talents, and on my own I took on starting to paint, to use oil. I experimented with oil, watercolor. The schools where I worked, or in particular one elementary school, for 3 consecutive years was the island champion. Those students received the cup for their artwork. It inspired me.
Just being the fact that she is a seasoned or veteran teacher, I was a little overwhelmed, but I was very inspired. So for me, this is going to be funny. So they color. and I'm a coloring guru. So I'll be like, you're going outside the line and we painted this color. And she's like, no. Let them explore. This is what they see through their eyes. So for me, it's like really seeing life differently and knowing like it has so many, beautiful, vast colors that, you can express yourself. And from 3 to 5, for me to see that this is a way she could actually gauge a child and see if they have learning disabilities, to see the type of child they are, their temperament, just by watching them color.
As a teacher first, I would say before any other profession, she's a mother and a teacher first. And she's very, what do you think about this? Or what do you see when I show you this painting? Always wanted to know how we felt, about her work and if we would be interested in doing something like that too. So there was always the times where before we could play, there had to be a lesson involved. Something had to be taught before we played, which is probably why I became a teacher.
The first time I met Eunice, it was in a very stagnant business setting. So I really had no idea at that time that she was this wonderful folk artist. Being 2 women in a primarily female environment where all of the management was primarily male, there were a lot of diversity conversations that came up. The truth of the matter is a lot of Eunice's work was completely misunderstood. Again, people here look at things and they look for illustration. Eunice's work is very soulful. She has a story to tell, whether it's an oral story that's being passed down by generations through her background from Jamaica, to the story of the black plight in the city of Wilmington, trying to elevate women. Those kinds of items were not well received in the early 80s.
It is the shock of the racism. You have credentials and people don't believe it. That there's always this sort of questioning of your ability. You get assignments and people are surprised that you do them well. And it can really impact people's health. And I really found her art as a way of coping and putting forward positive messages.
When she was working in the banking industry, there were late hours that she had to work. There was a lot of stress and pressures behind hitting certain numbers. The arts, in a sense, was missing from that business.
Most people in this particular area are used to the Wyeths and others that do the more refined art. So the biggest challenge was to overcome the image that folk art is more childish or more not as refined, because it may not have faces, it may be very crude, it may be very one arm a little bit bigger than the other.
Because a lot of people were not acquainted with folk art, I would get some types of feedback. And why do you round off the hands? Is that how all the people in Jamaica, is that how their hands look? They don't have fingers? It was pretty intriguing. But again, it was innocence, ignorance of folk art. I took on from there to start educating people what is folk art. That is not about the perspective or the accuracy, but it's about the life stories.
We started talking on where she wanted to go, from doing just artwork and doing it for a hobby's sake as far as a business is concerned. One of the suggestions was to start with the art loop, which had been, as you well know, over 20 years. So we started with that, and then we started with the covers of Out and About. I said, Eunice, find out what they want to do. It would be great exposure for you. The main thing over top of that was when she was invited to do Ronald and Donald shows. When she got into a George show, it changed a lot. We still got remarks, but we got quite a few people who wanted to collect it because they started to understand what folk art was about.
We were just brainstorming ideas for fundraising for the YMCA, and Eunice said, you know, I'm painting right now. And I said, gee, that sounds pretty good. But can you donate some clothing and we'll have a rummage sale? She said, in my country, we don't beg. So how about we consider an art auction? So from that time on, we became great friends. And I think at that art auction, we raised over $2,000 from her paintings.
If you can draw lines, you can draw shapes, and you can apply colors, that's art. So I encourage people to bring out the artist in you. I think everyone is an artist.
I remember I went on a vacation with my mom, and we went to the Grand Canyon, and there was this beautiful chapel built into this mountain. It wasn't the Grand Canyon, but it was the mountain. And I brought the pictures back, and I said, Eunice, look at these pictures that I took. And she said, you should frame those. And so she helped me get them framed, and then she said to me, on your resume, you can put photographer now.
I wasn't really even interested in doing nursing, you know, but how can you, she said, you can incorporate your music into helping people, you know, so that's what I focused it in doing that, started helping people with my music. She just kept encouraging me that, you know, even though you're in the nursing field or whatever, you can incorporate your music here too. You know, there's a lot of people who like to hear you sing or like to hear you play your instruments.
One of the things I've learned from Eunice is the fact that we probably all have art in us. I don't consider myself an artistic person, but she makes art seem easy.
If you look at a lot of the law enforcement studies today, it tells you that the average neighborhood where kids are in performing arts, the arrest rate is almost 87% less. And it does work. Just like community gardens, it's 67% less.
I grew up in a very tough neighborhood on the east side, Wilmington, whereas, you know, you could be a statistic at any moment. My mother focused on me not being a statistic, but being a stat maker, and that's one of the things that, you know, I say to this day is kind of one of my catchphrases, is that I'm not a statistic, I'm a stat maker. The arts allow you to be able to do that.
She's taught me that, you know, even with as a parent, teach your kids values, teach your kids morals, get them involved in some form of art. You know, I have one son who dances, I have one son who wrestles, and so that's their art, and so I push them to use that as a catapult for life. She's taught me that, you know, behind everything you can see, there's a deeper meaning.
I think the one thing that I love about Eunice the most is that she is committed to the community.
What Eunice has done for me was definitely, she's pushed me harder, just kept motivating me, you know, said that you can persevere through anything.
She has been persistent and consistent throughout all that she's gone through in just perpetuating her art.
She's always who she is. It's not anything behind the veil that you would be surprised about. So for me, she's helped me to know stand for who you are and who you believe in. Don't drift from that, no matter the company that you're in, and just know that God always has you.
It's okay to be you, wherever you are in life. It's okay, and those are the lessons that she's tried to illustrate in her paintings.
So I think that she has made such an impact on so many people. And I have personally enjoyed working with her over the years.
Labor for learning before you grow old, for learning is better than silver and gold. Silver and gold may vanish away,
but a good education will never decay.